Okay, so this session is on Shabbat Matters is really trying to bring that Jewish tradition into connection with our homes, our families, our personal lives. And what better way to start but with a blessing? And I'm going to use the same drush every single time. It's the blessing we say on Shabbat morning from Kol HaNeshama. This session is called Parenting with Neshama. Neshama, soul. You know, the other translation for neshama is breath. There is a connection. Okay, so we're going to start this with our blessing. Stephanie, you got the tune? Does everyone has a copy of the prayer? You've got it on your laps? If anyone else knows the tune, just for the first line, I'm going to ask you to sing along with Stephanie, because I don't know it. And it's in transliteration. And then we will say it together. Yeah. Neshama shenatata b'tehorahi Elohai neshama shenatata b'tehorahi Elohai neshama shenatata b'tehorahi Elohai neshama shenatata b'tehorahi. Thank you. I'm going to read the blessing itself. I'm going to read a short commentary, and then we'll move on, because you really didn't come here to hear me.
Sure we did.
Thank you so much. My God, the soul you gave me is pure. You have created it, you shaped it, and you breathed it into me. And you preserve it deep inside of me. And someday you will take it from me, restoring it to everlasting life. As long as Spirit breathes in me, I offer thanks before you. Breath divine, my God, God of my ancestors, the master of all deeds, source of every life, blessed are you, the Holy Spirit, in whose possession is the breath of every living thing, the animation of all flesh. Breath and soul. I want to introduce myself as, you know, in those Alcoholics Anonymous deals, I am a screamer. I have teenagers. I don't have the luxury of screaming anymore, but oh my gosh, did I do my share? And occasionally I'd have one of those moments. And I went to endless parenting sessions, hoping and praying that I would find the tool, the answer. And I'm going to give you that answer here and now. Whether you can get it or hold on to it is a whole other thing. Because there's the scream, and then there's the breath, and then there's the soul. And somewhere in between those two, the scream being the reaction, the reactive parenting, and the breath being the mindful and intentional and managed parenting. You know, all of us, want to be here. You know, whether you call it breath, whether you call it soul, whether you're in touch, whatever. I mean, how do you get from here to here? And if, that holding on to that notion and the words in this blessing about soul and breath and inner whatever, that's really what we're striving for, because that's what good parenting is being in touch with our inner neshama, our inner soul, our inner breath. And that's all I can say, because hey, it's going to help you get there.
This is, I wish I had all day with you all, and it's already almost 10 till 10. When do we have to call it quits? And
10:30 because 10:30 because Shabbat is coming in here and there.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
So very few of you breathe deeply to do what we call coherent breathing every day for 20 minutes. I'm certain you don't. You might try chocolate or wine or screaming. Running won't do it either, because that increases endorphins, but it doesn't shift your central nervous system. So if you're interested in learning coherent breathing, let's do another workshop. I'll get you all on the floor somewhere, and I'll teach it to you, because I'm certified in teaching breath work. But it is the oxygen and breathing that will get you back into your parasympathetic nervous system, because throughout the day, and when you're screaming as a parent, you're in your sympathetic nervous system. Your amygdala gets triggered where your emotion is. So if your child is reactive and then you're at risk to get triggered because you're sensitive to your child, or you're a little enmeshed, or you don't have a boundary in the moment because they just hit their sibling and you're reacting, your amygdala gets fired, and then your nervous system goes up. So then their nervous system's up, then your nervous system's up, then their nervous system's up, and nowhere to go. So all of your power is about coming down. Your voice comes down. It's not will you pick up your toys now, it's will you pick up your toys. You don't even say will you pick up your toys, forgive me. You say it's time to pick up your toys, and your voice has to come down. So all parenting that's powerful comes down, not up. So I'm going to do a 60-second review of what we covered last time. Who was not here last time? Raise your hand. Okay, so the first talk was supposed to lay the foundation. You can go to as many parenting talks as you want, but if you don't have the foundation of parenting involving the thinking and the values, and you don't understand what you do to keep your center and your balance, and you don't think about the culture, because parenting parallels down from our culture, then if you miss that, you can go to lots of parenting tools talks, but you'll never shift your parenting. So the first talk was about the foundation. I'll review it in just a moment. This talk today is tools, so everybody who wanted tools and tips, you're going straight to tools. And then the third talk, I want you to bring in your scenarios. I'm going to give you some examples today of scenarios, hopefully humorous, of the reactive parent versus the responsive mindful parent. And then I want you to bring in those scenarios next time, and we're going to take all those tools that I gave you, and you're going to bring your scenario in on an index card or a note card. And I'm just going to read scenarios, and we're all going to go at it with all the tools I taught you today, okay? So, last time...
Hey, do you have any more of those sheets?
Which sheet?
I'm going to send it out electronically.
Okay, fine.
If you, there's a list with your asking for your email. You'll get everything electronically.
I also want to say, besides the breath work, on my website, which if you just go to kabramsandassociates.com, there are 4 podcasts on there for free. And one of them is the Parenting with Confidence, Less Bribes, Less Threats, Less Exhaustion. There's also one called First Comes Hurt, Then Comes Anger. And there's one on sibling rivalry, and there's one on love your body, love yourself for body work, because I used to do a lot of eating disorder work. So there's 4 podcasts on that are free. You can just put them onto your smartphone and listen to them. We talked last time about being centered versus off balance when you're thrown off balance. And I asked you to be good social scientists for the last 2 weeks since my last talk, and pay attention to when you're thrown off center and what throws you off center and what keeps your core grounded. And it can be things like what makes us a weak parent and sabotages our confident core, calm authority without any bribes or threats, because you don't need that when you're grounded. You can, just through attachment and just through your being, children will comply. So when you sabotage that, we talked about things like fatigue and guilt, and I'll have to do shout-outs. We're going to save a lot of the Q&A for the last session, but what else for you all besides fatigue and guilt throws you off, where you're more likely to be a knee-jerk parent, an inconsistent parent, a let's-make-a-deal parent, say things you didn't mean, and then you were the foolish parent or the lazy parent because you said, okay, fine, one more, but I don't want to hear it again. And you accidentally reinforced obnoxious behavior, which we do all the time, which I'm going to try and help you stop doing. What else besides fatigue and guilt? Just
Running late.
running late, being frazzled.
Transferred stress from work.
Say it again.
Transferred stress
Just
from work.
Stress, frazzle, trying to squeeze too much in at one time. So we talked about all that, being centered versus off. We talked about how parenting is powerful not because you're here to get it right. Parenting is powerful for the process, and you really need to please take that with you. Parenting is powerful for the lessons. I'm a psychologist. We're all broken. Just get over it. These are lessons. We learn every day. That's the thing. People come to these workshops. They think I'm telling people how to parent and how to do it right. But really, the reason parenting is powerful is for your journey. It's all about correcting and redirecting. It's all about lessons. It's not about punishment. What consequence am I going to give? Time out. That's really going to undermine you, and you'll understand when I give you tools today. I like to say I'm waking you up to wisdom you already have. I'm cultivating mindfulness. I'm not up here giving you stuff you don't know. You're just either sleepwalking, or you're busy being preoccupied, or you're frazzled, and so you're not able to tap your wisdom. You all know it because you know the teachers you love, you know the managers you love, you know the cops, and I always say the RN in the emergency room. They're centered. They have to get their zoot suit on. They got to get their thinking cap on before they start their job. And so do you. we talked about nature nurture, which was so crucial to this talk. That was talk number 1. Because we parent, I say we parent for children to survive and thrive within the culture they live in. That means we can't raise them in you could try to raise them in a little shtetl with wooden toys and no violence and no TVs and no screens and only vegan food. But then you got to stay in that planet for the rest of their day. So we have to help our children be strong within the culture that they live. And we talked last time about what I called an ADHD world of overstimulation and immediate gratification. We talked about helicopter parenting that's fear-based and anxiety-based. And so if you got the article, Parenting in the Age of Anxiety, I wanted you to understand that parenting isn't all about you, that it really is a culture that we live in and that we're up against as parents, that we have to, if you want to try and stay calm and centered, you need to be mindful of the, not just peer pressure on your children, but on you as parents. We talked about a detached, fragmented, isolated feeling that parents have. We talked about how parents are married more to their children than each other. I made the comment, and everybody was able to laugh about it, that I said that, do you wake up every day and say, how can I make my spouse happy today? And how many times do you say, is my child happy? And why isn't he happy or she's happy? So that's what I mean by we think about our children far more than we do our spouse. That's a boundary issue. But it's a piece of our culture. And then I like to say we're raising kids in the Happy Meal Society. And this is summing up the last talk. I'm about to move into today's talk. But in the last talk, I was talking about the Happy Meal Society, because when you ask parents today what they want for their children, the adjective happy comes up more than any other generation of parent ever talked about for outcome. So at the top of your sheet you got today, and put at the top, so you can burn it into your brain, put it on your magnet refrigerator. What's the goal of parenting? And notice happy is not there. Self-reliance, responsible, flexible, able to take risks and learn from mistakes, manage their affect, problem solve, get along with others, delay gratification, etc. And I told you in the last talk that maturity is delayed gratification. When your children are frustrated or they start to melt down, leave space and relax and don't jump in and be so reactive. Stop talking so much. Less than 10 words. When you talk, you're automatically reinforcing. When you're quiet and you pause, you're letting their conscience work and you're letting them think and be frustrated. You're not taking over. Don't get hooked is another tool, I call it. Just see what it's like for the next 2 weeks before you come back to me to pause more often. Just wait. Because every time you take that ball of wax from them when they're getting emotional and they can hand it to you, it's like handing you a hot ball of wax and you catch it. Now it's your problem. Now you're on fire. Just throw it back. And the way you throw it back is calmly. And it's with faith. It's always with faith. It's always, you'll figure it out. It's always an energy of I have faith in you. You've been there. You went through your childhood. You already struggled in school. You did all this stuff. Let them struggle. So some of this is cultural, I believe, right now, because I think we have a very addictive society. But some of this is our intolerance for negative affect. I told you last time there's a whole new therapy that's getting marketed called DBT. And it's called distress tolerance. And you know what it is? It's all about teaching human beings, mostly teenagers and young adults who are wanting to cut themselves and are addicted, teaching them to tolerate basic negative emotions. And they are sad, mad, and scared. And what has happened, I believe, is in our happy meal parenting, our happy parenting, we have accidentally as parents not cultivated the muscle of tolerating real life internal affective states that involve negative emotions, because we're quickly rescuing or we quickly want everything okay or we're solving it for them. This is a serious, serious problem. I am happy you're here. This is a blessing. You're going to move forward and remember this, because we've got to stop doing this. We've got to stop immediately solving things for them, whether it's their homework or whatever it is. Let them I call it hold up the mirror. Take the mirror, turn it around, hold it up, so that your language says, what do you think? Or go like this. Or just be quiet and go, you'll figure it out. Or I take a look at that and come back to me and see what you figured out for the homework assignment. Whatever it is, it's called Hold Up the Mirror. So that's everything we talked about last time. I talked so much about culture last time. It was nature versus nurture. And I want to say something about nature. I ended the talk just telling you in a snippet that nature is your child's temperament, their hardwiring, which is their neurology, their biochemistry. There's a lot to our nature. And just last night I was out with my daughter, who is at NIH right now, and she is in the Human Genome Department doing some social behavioral research. And have anyone heard of the new research that came out about orchids versus dandelions? Didn't anyone hear this? Apparently Cantor Rachel knows about it. I'll send you the link if you email me, if you contact me.
There's an Atlantic Monthly article from a few years ago. It's not that new.
It's not new. Okay. Well, I loved it because I talk about it so much, but I'll tell to you in a snippet. My daughter was saying there's two parallels of different research going on, and this is a gestalt. It's happening as life happens. Everyone's thinking about this, but it's orchids versus dandelions, and that you're either an orchid or a dandelion. And there's a little questionnaire, and she'll send me the link, and I'll send it to you. She said there's 18 questions. We get a lot of orchids in our office for psychotherapy, and because the orchids are the fragile, more sensitive temperaments who are quite creative and gifted. And they're easy to tip, and they're very thin. I used to call it permeable membranes, not even semi-permeable, that they are just, they have the decibels are way up, and you got to turn them down because they don't have enough myelin sheaths in their nervous system. They don't have enough vests on, and so they don't have enough protection in the world. So they experience the world in terms of all sensory systems in a very sensitive fashion. Well, you can imagine, and there's 40 articles on my website that I've written, but one of them is called Nurturing Your Child's Nature. And it's about the unfortunate fit of a parent and child. So if you put an orchid with a parent who's a dandelion, so a dandelion is a move it forward. The other research is thick versus thin, Leah said. So there's orchids and dandelions, or you could say thick versus thin. So if you take a child who's an orchid, who's thin membranes, with a parent who's a dandelion with a thick membrane. The personalities who are thicker are more like move it forward. They don't get fazed by things. They're not as rattled. They sort of just are focused on what they're doing. And if you put that parent with a child that's highly reactive and highly sensitive, that parent might spend the whole time being dismissive. They might say, calm down, or that's ridiculous, or you just need to move it forward. And then that child gets worse and explodes and escalates because they don't feel that the parent understands them. So there's a misfiring going on. That's such a great understanding of what misbehavior is often about. So I'm moving right into tools because now I've got 30 minutes. So why do we misbehave? And notice I didn't say why do children misbehave, because it's true for us too, and you need to remember that. Everything I'm saying is true for our behavior too. Why do we misbehave? Why does anybody misbehave? Let's just shout out a few things. Tension, anger, stress. What causes misbehavior? Just so we can be mindful when people are misbehaving.
Lack of self-control.
Lack of self-control. Loss of control. What causes that loss of control? Why did you lose control? And why did Deborah scream so much? Why was she losing control?
Tired.
She's a rational woman. She's full of wisdom. Sometimes she rocks. What? Tired?
Frustrated.
Frustrated? Why are we so frustrated? I like to joke. We have 2 children, not 4 or 5. A lot of the moms I've worked with over the years get their nails done. They got 2 nannies, 3 TVs, 4 cars. Why are we so mad? We got more material comfort, obviously not the answer, than ever. We're buying off our stress and they're still angry all day and screaming. What is that about?
I think a lot of this responsibility is feeling responsible for your kids.
Feeling responsible, maybe sometimes overly responsible, given what I said, that we're a little too enmeshed.
Fear.
Yeah, it's like the practice for success, but also something that you brushed on last time, lack of
for community support, being on your own?
Isolation, pressure, feeling too much pressure, a little bit of too much narcissism too. That we're so important and parenting is our career and we got to get it right. We got to get that right thing out of our head. It really messes you up. Which, don't forget what I told you last time. Depression and angst and often anxiety is the discrepancy between how you think life should be, the should have, would have, could have in life, and how life really is. So the bigger the gap between what you think should be and the way reality is, whether it's your friends, neighbors, in-laws, teenager, whatever, the more you're going to be at risk for losing it. Because you got to adjust your expectation to the reality of what's going on developmentally and with that kid and your circumstance. There's a lot going on. Somebody wanted to say one more thing?
Fear.
Fear. Fear is the biggest. Fear is the biggest. And I believe we're parenting in a whole, when you look at environmental psychology, you're looking at circles. You're micro and then macro and all the circles that come down onto our behavior. And I believe we're living, that's why I wrote that article, Parenting in the Age of Anxiety, we're living in fear. Fear. I call it parenting. It's like they can't go outside and play, right? My mom's favorite parenting was go outside and play. That helped her nervous system. They could also smoke cigarettes. They could also have cocktail hours. They could spank and belt us, too. Can we keep going? Like, they had all kinds of things they could do, whereas we're with our kids almost 24/7, and we can't say go outside and play. And I'm not saying you should hit or spank them, but I'm saying that they had outlets, and they had a much stronger hierarchy, that kids were just kids, and kids would just get through it than we do. We act like everything is so fragile and such a big deal, and they're not going to make it in the straight A path to some sort of nirvana that we think they're going to get, which is straight to pot, by the way. Just telling you the truth. All right, so that's why people misbehave. And I like to say that we parent from the outside in. So limits set us free. So we talked last time about another cultural phenomena of too much democracy, too much choice in democracy. And the myth of parenting, the biggest myth of parenting, is if I am reasonable with my child will thereby be reasonable back. And if you haven't lived through that yet, and you haven't hit that brick over and over again in your head, let me tell you, it is just a lie. Let's not even call it myth. So stop talking so much and reasoning, because actions speak louder than words. Say what you mean and mean what you say, which means you've got to really be thinking. If you haven't done your thinking yet and you can't say what you mean and mean what you say, don't say it. Just say, I'm not ready yet, or I'm thinking, or I'll let you know later, or whatever. And I told you last time, when children persist, the answer is keep that up, and the answer is no. In other words, if you can't think yet to open your mouth and be that solid parent, and you need time, and they're pressing you. First of all, the reason children press is, have you ever heard of intermittent reinforcement? It is the most powerful reinforcement that exists, so you need to understand the concept of it. So, there's a rat in a box, and if he pushes a bar 3 times, he gets a pellet. And he knows that every time he pushes it 3 times, he gets a reinforcement. So that's consistency, right? There's a behavior and an outcome. So if you put the rat in and he has to learn a new pattern, he'll go a little crazy and be a little, wild and hyper like your kids get for a while. But he'll learn the pattern of, oh, now I have to do it 5 times, or I have to do it 3, 5, 7, and then I'll. But if you put them in an intermittent reinforcement, where sometimes it's once, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's none, what do you think that happens to the animal?
They go nuts.
They go nuts. They have cardiac arrest eventually, and they just die.
But that's my parenting technique.
Yeah, I know. That's why you're here. So that is so this is what we do as parents, and so you caught on so quickly. So we're doing intermittent reinforcement based on our mood and our fatigue, and depending on how charming your child is. So some of you sometimes tell your child something, but you're laughing because he's so darn cute. And so you're giving mixed messages. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not okay. So children are very confused. It's like having a bad boss. It's mercurial, because you never know. It's based on their mood. You never know what they're going to do. It's not based on a policy. It's not based on values. It's based on how charming your kid is, how well they argue, how tired you are that day, and if you need a break and you're going to cave in. So you lost your systems. Defiance over defiance. Less resistance, less arguing, less reactivity, more just sure, no problem. Okay? How many meetings do you have a week with your parenting partner or partners to go over what's working, what's effective, what isn't effective for each child's temperament, nature, nurture, or the situational factors at any given time? How often do you have that meeting? And how often do you think you should have it? If you were, I bet at work, if you're a manager or you're dealing with people, I bet you're thinking. If you're a teacher, I bet you're thinking. But how many parents do you know that do that kind of thinking every day? Either at lunch or over a phone call or at night, just to be on top of what they're doing and to be a mindful parent. I don't know many. So a dad's in the grocery store. I'm going to give you a couple examples of reactive versus responsive, and then I'm going to come back. I have 7 examples. I'm going to give you one to illustrate, and then I'm going to go into the tools. So a dad's in a grocery store. Here's the nurture factors. So let's say, nurture nature factors. Let's say the child is an orchid, hypersensitive. The dad had to run by the grocery store, unexpected. It's not his usual time to go to the grocery store. So we're talking about throwing off that balance I was telling you about. And he forgot on the way to the grocery store to do the parenting tool I call the roadmap. I've got so many more tools than are written down here, but you can write that word down, roadmap. Roadmap is when you give your kids the roadmap. They know where they're going. It's when you go to the library and you say, we're going to the library, you have 2 books, you need to be quiet in the library. It's called a roadmap. Teachers do it all the time. I made that word up, by the way. I made up everything. It's going to be in the book. These are my words. So you give them a roadmap. So dad's going to the grocery store. He didn't give his child a roadmap. He just knows what he's doing. How many times are you parenting, you know what you're doing, but you didn't share it with anyone else? So he shows at the grocery store, and the child sees candy. And let's add that the child's tired. The child's been in school all day, and he's running by the store at the end of the day, so the child's pretty fatigued, so let's add that factor in there. So children are gimme, right? It's gratification. So they see what the store is marketing, and they see a toy or candy or what have you. No proactive parenting. He didn't say, maybe I'll do this later. It wasn't proactive, recognizing any of these factors. So that was missing too. So she starts losing it. Let's just say she wants a piece of candy, so she's screaming. She's perseverative. Perseverating means when their brain locks in and they can't stop, okay? That's perseveration. We also call it cognitive rigidity when kids can't flex, but she's perseverating on candy that she sees. And she's escalating into a tantrum. Okay, well, let's do the reactive dad first, okay? You guys get to shout out and add to it because you've been there. So she's screaming and he's in the line. He's got to get through the line. He's got to get through now because he's already in the line and she's escalating. It's embarrassing. And the reactive dad's got that look on his face. It's like, better cut it out. And at one point he leans over to her, you know. He could grab her ear, he could grab a little bit of her skin, he could do something and say, cut it out, you need to be quiet, we got to get through the store. And then kid screams louder, right, because dad's getting scary. What else did the dad say? Keep that up. I said no. The word no keeps coming out with reactive parents. I said no. I said no, Candy. Listen to the tone. The tone is emotional. Help me, guys. He says, okay, you keep this up, you're not what when she gets home? Come on, help me. No TV, no dinner, no Chuck E. Cheese on Friday. You're not going to your friend's birthday party, etc. So you think, wah! She's like getting worse, right? Because it's all coming out. Doesn't work at all. I don't know why we do it, but we do it. So that's the reactive parent. He gets out of the store. Someone calls DS social services. Throws her in the seatbelt, manhandles her, and says, "You need a nap." You know, he's got all this. And he feels guilty and tries to undo it and spoils her for the rest of the evening. See, that's the other side of it.
Anyone here ever done that?
Okay, here's the mindful, solid rock we love. This is the camp counselor, the cop we love. This is it. He's got it. So he's in the store, same factors. Everything's off balance. He's in the grocery line. Daughter's losing it. And he's chatting with the lady behind the cash register, and they're chatting, and she's losing it. And he realizes she's losing it, and he's not just putting no in her face. He says, you know, candy is for Shabbat, or candy's for birthday parties, and we're here for Benjamin's gift. He's only focusing on what the behavior is that they're here for. He's not focusing on what her agenda is. Remember, we're here to get Benji's gift. I know, but he's also not talking to her anymore, because every time you talk, you reinforce. So he's ignoring her. And the store isn't calling social services. They're not saying, oh, abandonment, neglect, he's ignoring her. They're all going, oh, good, what a great dad. He's like not buying into this crap. We've all been there. So he's in the store and he's talking. And at one point, the child, because tantruming is exhausting, and you should never interrupt it, because if you interrupt it, you're going to expand it and extend it. So at one point, the little girl goes, because she has to get some oxygen. And the dad says, you want to help me put the groceries on the belt? I call this correct and redirect. I call it move it forward. And she goes, she got over all by herself. Next thing you know, she's putting the stuff on the belt and they're moving on. So you see, he didn't need many words. Because when you're a solid parent, you say what you mean and mean what you say, you don't need to keep talking. He was done. She wasn't done. She had to work it through emotionally. That belonged to her. And that's where maturity comes from, is through that wrestling with the angels, through that little thing she went through of wigging out. That belongs to her and it's precious. Don't get in on it with them, please. Let her work through that ugly little stuff and don't be afraid of the emotions. Leave it alone. He carried on. He understood. He's wise. Okay. So that's an example of reactive versus responsive. I have 6 more examples, but we have no time. So I'm going to go through the tools, and you're going to come back next time with scenarios, and we can do more. But let's go over some tools. And when we come back for scenarios, I promise, and if you would get here right at 9:30 or 9:25, we start on time, and then we can, I can take a lot of Q&A. All right, I can't believe I have 13 minutes left. Okay.
Wait, so let me just pause.
Yeah.
Suzanne suggested that we do have to get out of here because of Hot Shabbat, but we could go outside briefly for some more conversation, not led by, but if you want time for questions, if you're available.
I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so let's just, I try to categorize this into what's your system, delivering directives, and correct and redirect. Okay, so the first very important one is what's your system. This is proactive parenting. You have to clarify your values, and this is where I say know thyself and know thy child and know yourself. Don't parent according to the books and according to your neighbors and keeping up with the Joneses. You have your own you have your own family, you have your own needs, you have your own circumstance. So it's really sacred and important that you figure out what you need as a family and try not to get confounded by what your friends are doing and what everybody else is doing. So quick example, everyone's doing birthday parties, say, for 20 to 40 kids at a bowling alley or whatever. And you don't believe in that and you don't want to do that, and every time your kid's miserable. Don't do it. Have your party for 6 kids and try to believe that everyone will forgive you and you don't need to call every other 36 parents up out of the 40 and say, sorry, we just wanted to have a party for 6 kids because blah, blah, blah. That's a perfect example. Do what you need to do to take care of you. Get your values straight. Your systems, and when I say systems, it's for getting ready in the morning, it's homework systems, it's bedtime systems. Your systems come from your values. Everything you do as a parent, if I told my children take the shoes off when they come in the house, there's a reason. If you do that, there's a reason. Maybe you're trying to save your floors, maybe you grew up Asian, maybe there's just you don't want, I don't know, anyone to step on anyone's toes, but there's a reason you're doing it, okay? That's why, by the way, where the seatbelt is so clear. We're all clear. I didn't wear seatbelts growing up. But right now, we're all clear about that one. I want your parenting clear. That's what I'm talking about here. So you got to think about your values so you can create your systems and then your rules. Your rules are your expectations. Don't be afraid of rules. We're not talking about authoritarian. We're talking about authoritative parenting. If you read the research, there's a difference. Authoritative parents are the most effective parents. Authoritarian is what some of you confuse this with, and you think it's very punitive and it's very oppressive. Limits set children free. They need expectations. If you go to your job and you don't know what to do and you have no job description and there's no boundaries, you're going to have a lot of free-floating anxiety. You're going to have a lot of ADD. It creates ADD. You're going to be distracted all the time. You're not going to be as focused. You can't be compliant. Compartmentalization. There is a time and a place for everything. We talked last time about revisiting. What I mean by compartmentalization is don't confuse love and nurturance and connection and giggling and sweetness and reassurance and I love you with when you're managing. It's very confusing. Don't be the parent who says you need to this but I love you. Or you're parenting and the kid goes, I hate you, you're not, you said you're this, and you don't love me. And you're getting all the love stuff mixed up with management because they know they can hook you that way. So try to separate out. Have fun with them, connect with them, love them up. But when you're managing or when they're starting to whine or react, that's not the time to start to play or get sweet or confuse emotions. Does everybody understand that?
Could I ask you one quick question?
Yeah, really fast.
So
It's really dangerous, but go ahead.
there's a little conflict, and then he pats me and says, "I love you, Mom," and walks away. And
Who does? The kid does?
The kid does.
You know, if the kid does, bleh, ignore, move on, whatever. But you don't have to. I don't know.
I hate that.
Well, I just feel like I hate it too, and I feel like we're doing a lot of that right now, and I just want it out. I want it out. So for now, ignoring is the best extinction of a behavior.
Fine.
So boundaries. Put your zoot suit on. Put your thinking cap on. When it's your parenting shift, and you don't have to have parenting shifts at the same time, by the way. Some families are getting in trouble because of their ideals and values. We have to all be a family. We have to be together. We got to put the kids together. And they're fighting. They have different parenting styles. They're sabotaging each other. It's a mess. And so, you know, when you're thinking about your families, think about what's effective. In some families, it's more effective. Go take a break, be with your friends, go read the newspaper, and give yourself a restoration time while your partner is putting the kids to bed, and figure out your system so that somebody does it certain nights and somebody does it the other nights. You don't have to do everything together. That's an example of boundaries. Manage your impulses and avoid your mood, knee-jerk parenting. If you're in a bad mood or you're tired or you know you're depleted, just like when you go to work. I used to have to go to work as a mental health worker in a hospital. I worked in night shift. I was always depleted. But I had to have my center or they were going to eat me alive, these kids. So no matter what, when you go to work, it doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life. You have to kind of shore yourself up and get centered. Who says you didn't have to do that with your kids? Because trust me, if you don't, they're going to get you. They play the gotcha game all the time. And they exploit you and they take full advantage when they know you're weak. Just like you took advantage of the substitute teacher. It's the truth. They can sniff it out. Okay, boundaries. We talked last time about being present. That just your physical presence and not multitasking and not having split attention. I got a lot of people now on their iPads running to check their email. They're emptying the dishwasher while they're telling the kids to get dressed and they're shouting from 20 feet away. Or they have children who are natural dawdlers. A lot of children are naturally, if you want to call them ADD, go ahead and use the lingo, but it's not it. They're very in their right brains, a lot of children. They haven't been indoctrinated yet that their left brains are the most valuable brain in our culture. So they're in their right brains, and right brains are very artistic and very intuitive. So they're looking and noticing, and they get distracted, and then you come back and scream at them because they didn't get ready. But you weren't physically present. Or you're putting a 1-year-old with a 3-year-old expecting them to play with no rivalry so you can go get something done. And that's developmentally inappropriate. They can't do that. They're not going to play for long. Not long, maybe 3 minutes, maybe 6 minutes if they're 3 and 1. So modeling manners is boundaries, being present. Okay, let's talk about delivering directives. I'm sorry I have to talk so fast and fly through this. This is usually a 1 to 3 day workshop. Okay, 3 in 10 minutes. Delivering directives, watch your tone. Remember I said your tone comes down, not up. So just watch it. And if you catch yourself after learning this here, you can always go, oops, my bad, or oops, start over. I love start over. You can say start over to a child 2 words. I say less than 10 words. Start over is one of my favorite. Looking right at you. Start over. That's all I got to say. Kids are really smart. You don't have to say start over because you're hurting my ears and mommy's not happy today and I'm really tired, and if you keep that up, you're not going to... You know, I say it's like the 2 cookies, and the difference in the reactive and responsive parent is the reactive parent's going 2 cookies because remember, if you have too much sugar, you could get diabetes like Uncle Morris, and you're going to get cavities, and you wonder why we have fear-based. That's fear-based parenting, folks. That's creating anxiety disorders. That's it right there. And I hate to say it, but our tribe has a really good dose of that tendency. So watch your tone, keep it brief, calm down, slow and low. Your voice comes down, mean what you say what you mean. Don't make it a choice. Why are you making it a choice? If it's a rule and an expectation and you're delivering a command, you want to deliver a command, don't end it with okay. Now you just made it a choice. Now you just made it a democracy as if they have a choice. So it's not go wash your hands, it's time for dinner, okay? Well, why, Dad? But okay. It's not okay. They're going to go, no, I want to do something else. So watch what comes out of your mouth, because we tend to do this. We think we're being respectful by asking them how they feel about it. And try asking children how they feel about a command you're trying to give them. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be, I'm running the other way. Try to get rid of if-then parenting. Just take the word if out of your vocabulary, please. If I'm your manager and I say, if you don't da-da-da, then you don't da-da-da, how do you feel about me? You feel like cooperating? I don't. So, and some children are very oppositional by nature. They're very strong-willed. That runs in our tribe too, by the way. And I think that if you want to get, I just used if. If you want to get rid of if, you say when you take 3 more bites, then. Say when and then instead of if. Because there's something about if that's a challenge psychologically, like a game. But when you say when you're done with this, then we'll do that. You're leading them. You're moving them forward. Let's see, hit the pause button. No, there's one other really trick I want to correct and redirect. Let's go there real quick. I told you about hold up the mirror. I want you to learn to say no with a yes, and I want you to move it forward. I'm going to give you a really quick example from my office. Dad's in his really reactive, hypersensitive, orchid kind of kid, little boy. And the parents think they're really strong and consistent, but their tone is really intense, often very angry. When you put them on video, they didn't realize it. And so the child was really reacting a lot to their tone. They thought they were good parents, and they were often saying no, so they thought that was good too. So here's an example. Child's in the back seat. Dad sees him through the rear view mirror, and he's got a little plane, and he's chewing on it. He's putting it in his mouth. Reactive parent, Dad, immediately goes, Luke, stop it. You're chewing on your plane. Stop it. I'm going to take it away from you. That's the reactive parent. That's his immediate thought. I'm taking the plane. I'm being a good parent. I told him not to chew on the plane. I'm taking it away. He talks just like this. And I said, okay, shh, bring it down. And then the point was correct and redirect, and here's how it sounds. It's shaping the behavior. Hey, Luke, you can land that plane, you can fly that plane around the seats, you can put that plane on the kid has it in his mouth because he's not thinking. And as soon as Dad redirects his brain, and the dad's kind of being fun, saying, hey, you know what you can do with that plane back there? And then the kid immediately starts doing whatever with the plane. He didn't have to say, get it out of your mouth, stop chewing on it, or I'm taking it away. That's called correct and redirect. It's also called shaping the behavior. So you're naming the behavior where they're going. I'm also going to teach you, and I just don't have time, how to connect behavior and outcome. So if somebody says they're in an oneg and their kid's crying for brownies and they want the kid to eat a few more bites of food, don't talk about the brownie. Don't talk about the brownie. If somebody's whining and you go, stop whining, you're talking about whining and they keep whining. This is just something you don't know from behavioral psych. So if they say, I want the brownie, don't say, no, I said no brownies, or okay, we'll have brownies later, okay, 1 brownie. Don't keep saying brownie. It's like if I say, don't think pink elephant the rest of this talk, all you're going to think about is pink elephants. Just stop parenting that way. So what you do is they want the brownie, bring their brain elsewhere. So you say, you got to be close to their face and close to them, and your voice has to come down because that's how you're powerful. If you have to take them out for a hit of oxygen and get away from people if you have to, if they're escalating quickly. But then you get to them and you say, 3 bites of macaroni, or notice my voice is down, or 2 bites of kugel, and then we'll go on to dessert. We'll go on. And you just say what they need to do and connect it. But your voice is calm. And until that child's breathing gets calm with you, if they're still escalated, you just stay outside. Be there physically, no words. Breathe with them. It's like breathing with your puppy. Brings you right down. Bring them down, bring them down. Because when you bring her down, she can come back to her psychological ego, we call it, or her left brain. She can be a little more reasonable. But don't talk a lot. Don't talk a lot. Just bring her down with your body and your heart and your energy. It's all energy work. And then say, just like that dad did. Come on, ready to go? Let's go have a couple bites of macaroni. Okay, I have to stop. I usually go on and on and on, but I have to stop.
So, wrapping up, thank you all so much for coming. If anyone has one of these sign-up sheets out there, please give it to me. If you want the additional handouts of links to his website or a podcast, whatever, be sure to leave your name and your email here. If you don't write on Shabbat, just email me another day. Here's pencils. Rabbi Fred is talking about camp in the sanctuary, so you're all encouraged to go in and hear about camp. Kate, where is Tasha Bhat? I think they're good. Tasha Bhat is coming in here. If you want to have a little fun and have a brief conversation with Kate afterwards, I think she's available.
I'll do that. I also wonder if we could think about, after the third workshop, please come back and bring your scenarios, hand them to me at the beginning of the workshop. And I will take every scenario, and I will take these tools that I'm talking about, and I will illustrate them in the scenario and take you through it. So take your favorite, most aggravating scenario at home and bring it to me. And then if we could, I would continue a support workshop where we could do something where we can keep going. I'm willing to do that. I just don't know how to do it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being in the room. Thank you very much.
What is the next one?
The next one is
November 9th. November 9th?
I think November 9th. I'll send you an email. Put your name on the email.